They say peace is when no one's bothering you, but I'd mistaken silence for security and comfort for control. I've always prided myself on having my life together. Madeline Turner, 28, senior social media strategist at Brightfuse Digital in Portland. Our office is everything you'd expect: glass walls, collaborative spaces, and an espresso bar that makes me almost forget my own machine at home. Almost. 4 years at Brightfuse, and now I'm leading the FlexForm Gym's national rebrand. If it succeeds, I'll get that promotion with the 15% salary bump I've been eyeing. My colleagues see me as disciplined, controlled. Someone who keeps her personal life neatly compartmentalized from work. My apartment sits in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood. One bedroom, cozy. Mine. Well, technically my parents. Philip and Maureen Turner bought the duplex as an investment 5 years ago. I pay $950 a month, about $350 below market. A family deal, they call it. This place is my sanctuary. The mid-century couch I reupholstered myself, the bookshelf I built from scratch, my splurge espresso machine from my first bonus, photography and concert posters from college, my bed with its foam mattress and hand-sewn European linen sheets. I save 20% of every paycheck, $26,000 so far toward a home purchase in the next 3 years. I've felt proud, self-made, safe. But lately, something's been off. I wake up with this inexplicable unease. Then came the first red flag, a random text from my younger sister Brianna. "Hey sis, just checking in. Miss you." We barely speak outside family gatherings, so this felt performative. I replied politely, but something felt wrong. I've always had to fight for space in my family. I worked part-time through college and graduated with minimal debt. Bought my own car through a loan. Brianna, expensive liberal arts university, changed majors 3 times, fully funded by our parents. Her car? Bought outright. Rent-free whenever unemployed. Me? When I got laid off once, I received a loan from my parents, with 5% interest. I never complained. I learned early that fairness wouldn't come, so independence had to. The below-market apartment felt like my small victory. "We're doing you a favor," Mom often reminds me. "You'd be lucky to find this elsewhere." Brianna hasn't visited in over a year, never once complimented my space or offered help when I was setting up. Last week, Mom called about renovations at their house. "The guest room's a construction zone. You wouldn't recognize it." Then casually, "Brianna's going through a lot. Mitchell cheated on her. Can you imagine?" I offered the expected, "Oh no," but felt a prickle of anxiety when she added, "Families should support each other in hard times. You know that, right?" I shook it off. Assumed they'd offer therapy, or let Brianna stay at their house. That night, I scrolled Pinterest planning a kitchen backsplash update for summer. Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. sharp. I was supposed to wake at 7:30. The knocking was relentless. I opened the door to find Brianna with 2 designer suitcases, a duffel bag, yoga mat, oversized purse, and sunglasses perched on her head. Her hair was messy, eyes puffy, but she still smelled like that expensive citrus perfume. "Surprise, I'll be staying here a bit," she said cheerfully. I stood speechless, wondering if I was sleepwalking. She pushed past me without waiting for an answer. A minute later, Mom called. "Your sister's there, right?" "Wait, what's happening?" I managed. Her voice turned firm, almost cold. "She's moving in for a while. And also, starting next month, your rent will increase. Your father will text you the amount. It's fair." My legs went numb as Brianna opened kitchen cabinets, already complaining there was no oat milk. I stared at her unpacking toiletries onto my bathroom counter, rearranging my incense sticks and bath oils. Then I heard the unmistakable ping of my phone. A message from my father. Effective next month. New rent, $1,900. Adjust your budget accordingly. I looked back at Brianna, now wearing my robe. Some people knock. Others just walk in and start calling it theirs. I pulled Brianna aside that first morning, my hands shaking. You can't just move in. This is a one-bedroom. I work from home twice a week. Where would you even sleep? She shrugged, flipping her hair over her shoulder. The couch is fine. It pulls out, right? Why didn't you stay at Mom and Dad's? I asked, trying to keep my voice level. Guest rooms full of paint fumes. Dad snores like a freight train, and Mom's turned the fridge into a kale graveyard. She said it like these were legitimate emergencies. I texted Mom immediately. This isn't going to work. Her response came back quickly. Be kind, she's grieving. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Within hours, Brianna posted a story on Instagram, a boomerang of my living room with the caption, "New digs who diss," as if my space was hers to claim. That night, she took over my couch but left piles of clothes and hair tools scattered across the room. I tripped over her curling iron at 5:30 in the morning. By day 3, I woke to find Brianna standing at my bedroom door, arms crossed. I was thinking, maybe I take the room. It gets less morning light and you're such a morning person. Absolutely not, I said, no hesitation. Her eyes immediately filled with tears. I just lost my home and my relationship. Can't you make one small sacrifice? Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Dad. Your sister is struggling. Don't be difficult. I gave a reluctant compromise. Brianna could use the bedroom for daytime naps when I was at the office. By the end of the week, she was sleeping there full-time anyway. Sometimes I'd come home to find the door locked. My video meetings became a source of constant anxiety. I'd position my laptop to hide the chaos, but it was impossible to mask everything. Makeup kits sprawled across the coffee table, clothes draped over chairs. Brianna walking behind me in a robe, making coffee loudly. My boss Diane even commented during our team check-in. Madeline, what's with the chaotic vibes lately? You okay? I mumbled something about temporary roommate situations. Inside, I was screaming. Brianna refused to clean. I'm processing trauma, she'd say when I asked her to pick up her wet towels from the bathroom floor. My groceries started disappearing. I'd buy almond milk on Monday, find it replaced with Brianna's oat milk by Wednesday. My $50 imported face serum turned up empty after a week. Self-care is how I survive right now, was her explanation, not even a hint of apology in her voice. The financial weight grew heavier each day. The water bill spiked from Brianna's twice-daily baths, apparently part of her healing ritual. Electricity costs rose from the constant use of her flat iron and hairdryer. I tracked a $310 grocery bill for the month, double my usual. When I brought it up, Brianna scoffed. You sound like a landlord. Then, with an airy wave of her hand, I can Venmo you when I have income again. Maybe next month? Or the next. I tried to implement quiet hours so I could sleep before early meetings. Brianna laughed. You're not my boss. My friend Rachel texted after I vented to her, you need an exit strategy. Fast. One evening, I overheard Brianna on the phone with a friend, her voice carrying from the bathroom. Yeah, it's perfect. Madeline's place is so cute. She barely says anything. Honestly, I think she needs the company. That cut deep. The idea that she thought she was doing me a favor by invading my space. Worse was learning what Dad had told her. Don't worry about money. Your sister owes us enough favors. The timing didn't add up either. The renovation at my parents' house had barely started when Brianna showed up. During Sunday dinner, while grabbing more napkins from Dad's office, I spotted a folder labeled 2023 Property Tax Strategy. Inside were notes mentioning a family occupancy deduction. They'd planned this. The move-in. The rent hike. It wasn't about Brianna's breakup at all. My suspicions were confirmed when my boss called me into her office the following Tuesday. "You've been off," Diane said, her expression serious. "I need to know. Do I need to pull you from the FlexForm account?" I assured her everything was fine, that I was just dealing with some personal issues. But the truth was, I was drowning. That night, I found Brianna trying on one of my blazers, the one I'd carefully pressed for the FlexForm pitch meeting. "What are you doing?" I demanded, exhaustion making my voice sharp. She turned, examining herself in the mirror. "Just seeing if this fits. It might look better on me anyway." "Take it off. Now." I rarely used that tone, but I'd reached my limit. Brianna smirked, making no move to remove my blazer. "Oh, relax. You act like this place is even yours." Those words hung in the air between us, the casual cruelty, the entitlement, but most of all, the truth that had been creeping up on me since she arrived. In my parents' eyes, this apartment was never truly mine. I wasn't an independent adult making my way in the world. I was a placeholder, keeping the unit warm until they needed it for something, or someone, else. I stood there, watching my sister wear my clothes in my apartment that wasn't really mine, and something inside me went very, very quiet. It wasn't anger anymore. It was something colder, more determined. Rachel was right. I needed an exit strategy. Not tomorrow, not next week. Now. A breaking point isn't always a loud explosion. Sometimes it's the quiet click of something inside you giving up. I missed a major client deadline the next day. First time in my 4-year career. My mind was scattered, distracted by the image of Brianna in my blazer, by her words, "You act like this place is even yours." Diane requested a one-on-one that afternoon. Her office door closed behind me with a soft click that felt like a gavel coming down. "What's going on at home, Madeline?" Her eyes were concerned, her tone serious. "This isn't like you." I lied, said it was just family stuff. The truth felt too pathetic to voice aloud. "The FlexForm campaign is too big to stumble," she warned gently. "Either you're in, or I'll reassign it." Humiliation burned through me, but I forced a confident nod. "I've got it under control." It was the biggest lie I'd told yet. When I got home that evening, Brianna was hosting a healing circle. A group of 3 friends sitting cross-legged on my living room floor, eyes closed, incense burning, candles melting wax onto my vintage coffee table. Someone had spilled kombucha on my hand-stitched rug. No one had bothered to clean it up. I stood in the doorway, keys still in hand, watching these strangers occupy my space. I tried to remain calm, but Brianna opened one eye and frowned. "You're vibrating very negatively lately," she said, as if I were the problem. That night, I updated my monthly budget spreadsheet. With the new $1,900 rent, housing would consume nearly 70% of my post-tax income. Bills were all up. My savings goal for a house in 3 years? Dead and buried. Worse, I checked my bank statements and discovered Brianna had used my Venmo-linked card to buy $74 worth of wellness items online. "You said I could grab groceries," she explained when confronted. "I needed those things for mental health." I locked my apps and set up 2-factor authentication that same night, started keeping groceries in my room, hidden like contraband. Meanwhile, Brianna was posting TikToks with my kitchen as backdrop. One clip showed her mock crying, "When your sister still expects rent during your heartbreak era." The comments were vicious. "Kick her out, queen!" and "Toxic sister alert." 120,000 views. Dozens of strangers bashing me for being heartless when I was the one being forced out of my own home. The following Sunday, during another strained family dinner, I excused myself and wandered upstairs to Dad's home office. I wasn't even being sneaky. Part of me wanted to be caught. I found a tax folder labeled Rental Strategy 2023. Inside were notes about reclassifying my unit as a dependent family occupancy to claim tax deductions. A handwritten line from Mom jumped out, use Brianna's situation as trigger event. My stomach dropped. A second folder was labeled Contingency Asset Reclaim. It outlined how the apartment could be reclaimed legally if I failed to comply with rent increases or expectations. The entire setup, Brianna moving in, the rent hike, the narrative of family support, had been premeditated. A strategy to pressure me into relinquishing my hold on the space. I returned to the dinner table, smiling at my mother's questions about work, nodding at my father's latest lecture on retirement planning. Inside, something had hardened. That evening, I came home to find Brianna filming an unboxing video in my bedroom, still wearing my work blazer. My coffee stash was gone. My espresso machine was missing from the counter. I lent it to Sasha, Brianna said when I asked, not even looking up from her phone. She's starting a coffee blog. I didn't argue. I locked myself in the bathroom and sobbed silently, sitting on the cold tile floor. When I could breathe again, I texted Rachel. I feel like a prisoner. I pay for everything and still have no control. Her response came quickly. Then stop asking for permission and start writing your exit plan. I opened my laptop there on the bathroom floor. The numbers were clear. Emergency fund, $26,000. Cost of new apartment up front. First month deposit, movers. Estimated $4,500. Margin to live on. Tight, but possible. I made a decision right there, with the sound of Brianna's laughter filtering through the door. I was done. The next morning, I reached out to Vanessa, a rental agent Rachel had recommended. I explained everything. Urgent timeline, tight budget, needed a lease within 2 weeks. If you're flexible on size and location, we can make this work, Vanessa assured me. I checked my lease that night while Brianna was out with friends. Month to month since year 2. No restrictions on furniture or fixtures. Everything inside belonged to me. I called Rachel's brother Kyle, a real estate attorney, who confirmed, "You're within your rights. They can't touch your stuff." That evening, I checked Mom's Facebook and saw what I'd been hoping for. My entire family, including Brianna, were attending a family reunion the following weekend at Aunt Cynthia's lake house, 3 hours away. Brianna had RSVP'd with a string of heart emojis. I marked my calendar. Saturday, 9 a.m. extraction day. That night, I lay awake in bed. Or rather, on the couch, since Brianna had claimed my bedroom again, listening to her snore through the wall. My phone buzzed with a message from Dad. "We need to have a formal conversation. Your sister deserves better than this." I stared at the screen, oddly calm. Because for the first time in weeks, I had something they didn't. A plan already in motion. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel anxious. What I felt was a strange, cool certainty, like stepping from a noisy, crowded room into quiet, open air. They thought they knew me. They thought I would bend and break, and eventually surrender the space I'd made for myself, just like I always had before. But they'd pushed too far this time, and they were about to learn something new about their reliable, responsible daughter. I could disappear just as suddenly as Brianna had appeared, and I'd be taking everything with me. They thought I wouldn't leave because I never had before. But this time, I wasn't leaving. I was taking everything with me. Monday through Friday became my silent countdown. I packed strategically in secret, labeling boxes with harmless descriptions, donations, seasonal. Brianna was out most afternoons meeting friends for coffee or shopping, documenting each outing on Instagram. I worked late at cafes to avoid confrontation. I reserved a moving truck in Marcus's name, Rachel's boyfriend, and ordered supplies to be delivered to Rachel's apartment. I notified my bank to update my billing address effective the following week, filled out the USPS mail forwarding form. I canceled utilities starting in 10 days, simply noting lease termination on the forms. Deleted Brianna's access to my Netflix, Spotify, and Uber Eats family plan. Backed up digital files and wiped my shared tablet. Most importantly, I printed receipts for all big-ticket items in the apartment, each piece of furniture, appliance, and electronic, and labeled them in a folder titled Ownership Documentation. Marcus confirmed a crew of 6 friends would help. 3 trucks, 1 SUV, starting Saturday morning. Friday night arrived. I pretended to have work deadlines, keeping to myself while Brianna packed an overnight bag for the family reunion, humming to herself. "Can I borrow your new flats?" she asked, already rummaging through my closet. "They'd look cute with my dress." "No," I said simply. She rolled her eyes. "God, you're so uptight lately." Mom and Dad swung by to pick her up around 7. Mom lingered in the doorway, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Don't forget to look over the new rent agreement, dear. Your father wants it signed by Sunday." I smiled sweetly. "Sure, I'll think about it." The door closed. The house fell silent. For the first time in weeks, I was alone in my space. I savored it for exactly 3 minutes before I started making calls. Saturday, 6 a.m. I woke up, showered, and made coffee. I took one last look around the apartment that had been my sanctuary, now tainted by Brianna's intrusion. 7:30 a.m. The first truck arrived. Rachel, Marcus, and 4 others piled out, coffees in hand, ready to work. I gave orders like a general directing troops. Big furniture first, bed, couch, bookshelf. Kitchen essentials next, cookware, espresso machine, pantry items. Tech after that, modem, smart bulbs, speakers. Small details last, shower curtain, wine rack, framed art, even the light bulbs I bought. By noon, the apartment was 70% cleared. By 1:30, the last load left. The apartment stood nearly empty. Only the built-in appliances remained. Rachel left a bottle of wine and flowers at my new place, a tiny studio in a secure building across town. "You did it," she said, hugging me tight. Back at the old apartment, I placed an envelope on the counter with the keys, a rent check for the last month, and a lease termination letter. I taped a second envelope to the fridge, labeled "For Brianna." Inside, a $40 Target gift card with a note, "Buy an air mattress." I did one final sweep, unplugged everything, turned off lights, shut the door quietly. I took photos of the empty apartment as proof of its condition, then walked away without looking back. My new place was smaller, 500 square feet, but bright, clean, and peaceful. I set up the bed, lit a candle, and for the first time in weeks, I took a deep breath that didn't catch in my throat. Sunday, 4:17 p.m. My phone exploded with notifications. Brianna. "What the hell? Where is all the furniture?" Mom. 6 missed calls. Voicemails screaming about betrayal and selfishness. Dad. An email titled "Immediate Legal Violation." I read each message in silence, then blocked them all temporarily. I played my own playlist, opened a beer, and ate takeout in bed. When I wanted to turn on the reading lamp, I did. Not because someone told me to, but because I chose to. Monday morning, 8:01 a.m. My phone rang again. This time, I answered. "You will explain yourself," Dad said, his voice calm but hard. "This is not how family operates." I walked to the window, looked out at the sunrise painting the sky pink and gold. "I'm not your tenant anymore," I said. And hung up. The calls continued all day. I let them go to voicemail. Mom sobbing, Dad coldly stating, "You'll regret this." Brianna in disbelief. "You took everything?" Finally, around 6 p.m., a final email from Dad. This will be handled legally. I responded with a single PDF attachment containing lease termination clause, proof of month-to-month status, photographs of the apartment's condition, receipts for every major furnishing subject line. Handled. My new apartment felt like a cocoon. Yes, it was small, 500 square feet, but it was quiet, clean, mine. The bed took up most of the bedroom. I turned the corner of the kitchen into a cozy workspace. My dining table became my desk. My reading lamp stayed exactly where I placed it. I built new routines. Morning yoga on the tiny balcony, Sunday grocery walks, weekly calls with Rachel, bi-weekly rooftop tea with Kayla, the graphic designer who lived across the hall, and quickly became a new friend. I began sleeping better. My journal entries shifted from panic to peace. Work improved. I met my next deadline early, and Diane noticed. The FlexForm campaign gained momentum again. Through Mom's reluctant updates during our brief, tense phone calls, I learned about Brianna's new reality. She'd had to sleep on a borrowed love seat the first 2 weeks. She complained so much that Dad eventually bought her an air mattress. After 10 days, she was told she'd need to begin paying utilities. Madeline never asked me for money. She'd apparently protested. To which Dad had snapped, "She paid your share, and you mocked her for it." I felt a grim satisfaction hearing that Brianna had gotten a part-time job at a local boutique, that she'd started paying $300 toward rent. One day, I received a sarcastic Venmo request from Brianna for emotional damages, $1,000. I declined with a one-word reply, grow. The most surprising development came 1 month after moving. Brianna sent a text. I need to talk. Not to fight. Just coffee? I was wary but agreed to meet at a public place, neutral ground. Looking at her across the cafe table, I hardly recognized my sister. She wore less makeup, a thrift store coat, no flashy jewelry. You were right, she admitted, stirring her coffee. I was entitled. I didn't realize it until there wasn't anyone left to clean up after me. I listened silently, not offering absolution. I thought I was the one getting dumped, she continued, but you leaving made it clear. You were the one who finally let go. She told me she was applying for full-time work and trying to move out when the lease ended. Apology accepted, I said finally. Pattern not forgotten. Brianna nodded. Fair. My phone buzzed with a message from Diane. The FlexForm campaign had exceeded expectations. They wanted me to present at the quarterly meeting. I looked back at my sister, this stranger across the table, and realized something. I'd spent my entire life fighting for space in my family. Now, I'd finally stopped fighting and started building. You think the hard part is leaving, but the real shock is what happens when you realize they never expected you to go. Sunday night into Monday morning, I continued ignoring the barrage. Each call, text, and email felt like distant thunder, noisy but unable to touch me. The voicemails piled up. Mom sobbing about betrayal. Dad coldly stating, "Your actions have consequences, Madeline." Brianna's voice shrill with disbelief. You took everything? Who does that? I listened to each one, letting their words wash over me without sticking. I was immune now. When Dad's final email arrived, "This will be handled legally," I responded with documents I'd prepared weeks ago. Lease termination clause, proof of month-to-month status, photographs of the empty apartment, receipts for every major furnishing I'd purchased. Subject line, handled. He didn't reply. My new apartment was tiny, just 500 square feet, but the silence was luxurious. No one moved my things. No one used my shower products. No one complained about the temperature or the lack of oat milk. I arranged my furniture deliberately. The bed took up most of the bedroom, but I didn't mind. I turned the corner of the kitchen into a workspace. My dining table became my desk. My reading lamp stayed exactly where I put it. I built new routines quickly. Morning yoga on the tiny balcony that overlooked a community garden, Sunday grocery walks through the neighborhood farmers market, weekly calls with Rachel where I didn't have to vent about my living situation, bi-weekly rooftop tea with Kayla, the graphic designer who lived across the hall. Sleep came easier. My journal entries evolved from frustrated rants to peaceful reflections. Work improved dramatically. I met my next deadline early and Diane noticed. "You're back," she said simply during our one-on-one. "Whatever storm you were weathering, I'm glad it's past." I nodded, not elaborating. "The FlexForm campaign is on track. We've exceeded engagement projections by 37%. She smiled. "I knew you'd pull through." The campaign accelerated. I felt solid ground beneath my feet for the first time in months. Through Mom's reluctant updates, she'd started calling every Sunday, conversations brief and strained. I pieced together what happened after my departure. Brianna had slept on a borrowed love seat for 2 weeks, complaining constantly. Dad finally bought her an air mattress, but not the full bed she'd demanded. After 10 days, they told her she'd need to begin paying utilities. "Madeline never asked me for money," she'd protested, according to Mom. To which Dad had apparently snapped, "She paid your share, and you mocked her for it." The shift in dynamics fascinated me. Without me there to absorb the burden, they'd been forced to confront the imbalance they'd created. Brianna got a part-time job at a local boutique, started paying $300 toward rent, learned to do her own laundry. One morning, I received a sarcastic Venmo request from her. For emotional damages, $1,000. I declined with a one-word reply: grow. Then came the surprise. 1 month after moving, Brianna texted, "I need to talk, not to fight. Just coffee?" I agreed to meet at a cafe downtown, public place, neutral ground, easy escape if needed. When she walked in, I hardly recognized my sister. Gone was the carefully curated Instagram aesthetic. She wore less makeup, a thrift store coat instead of designer labels, no flashy jewelry. "You look different," I said as she sat down. "Yeah, well," she shrugged. "Turns out keeping up appearances is expensive." We ordered regular coffee for both of us, not the elaborate specialty drinks she used to insist on. "You were right," she admitted, stirring in sugar. "I was entitled. I didn't realize it until there wasn't anyone left to clean up after me." I listened silently, not rushing to absolve her. "I thought I was the one getting dumped by Mitchell," she continued. "But you leaving made it clear. You were the one who finally let go of something toxic." She told me she was applying for full-time work and planning to move out when the lease ended. "Apology accepted," I said finally. "Pattern not forgotten." Brianna nodded. "Fair." 2 weeks later, Dad called. His tone was different. Less commanding, more measured. "Your mother and I have been talking," he said. "We didn't realize how far we pushed." I made non-committal sounds, offering nothing. "How are you doing?" he asked eventually. "Fine," I replied, keeping details minimal. After an awkward pause, he said something I never expected. "We might have created some imbalance between you and your sister." I didn't correct his might. I just said, "I hope you don't repeat it." Mom remained distant, reaching out only with passive-aggressive texts. "Holidays won't be the same without you. It would have been easier if you just talked to us." I never responded. As Thanksgiving approached, I assumed I'd spend it with Rachel's family or alone. Then a handwritten invitation arrived in the mail, not a group text, not an email. From Dad, not Mom. Inside, no expectations, just dinner. "You choose if you come." I stared at it, unsure what to feel. Then I flipped it over and found one last line handwritten on the back. You were always the strong one. We see that now. I ran my fingers over the words, feeling the indentation of the pen. A confession? An apology? An attempt at manipulation? I placed the card on my kitchen counter and went about my day. Later that evening, I found myself looking at it again. Family dinner meant entering their orbit again, risking their gravity pulling me back into old patterns. But something had changed. I had changed. I wasn't the same person who'd let them dictate the terms of my existence. You were always the strong one. It wasn't enough. It wasn't a full reckoning with what they'd done, but it was an acknowledgement of something they'd never recognized before. I picked up my phone and typed a response to Dad. What time? His reply came instantly. Whenever you're ready. I smiled at that. For once, he'd gotten it right. It would be on my terms or not at all. That night, I dreamed of the old apartment. But in the dream, I was packing boxes while Brianna helped, both of us laughing about something. I woke confused, the emotion lingering like a strange aftertaste. Not nostalgia, not regret. Hope, maybe. Or just the quiet certainty that whatever happened next, I would be fine. Because I'd learned the most important lesson. When you finally stop fighting for space in someone else's life, you realize how much room you have to build your own. When you finally stop fighting for space in someone else's life, you realize how much room you had to build your own. I showed up for Thanksgiving. No fanfare, no drama. Simple outfit, quiet arrival. Everyone seemed surprised but welcoming, especially Dad. Mom acted polite but stiff, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Brianna looked different, more subdued, less performative. Dinner itself was different too. Dad didn't launch into his usual lectures about real estate investments or retirement planning. Brianna brought homemade pumpkin pie, made from scratch, not store-bought or ordered from a bakery. I sat at the end of the table observing more than speaking. The dynamics had shifted in ways I couldn't have imagined 3 months ago. During cleanup, Mom finally spoke to me one-on-one, cornering me by the dishwasher. "You hurt me," she said, voice tight. I looked at her directly. "I never wanted to. I just stopped letting you hurt me." A long pause stretched between us. Then, almost imperceptibly, she nodded. "We weren't fair," she admitted, "to either of you, but especially to you." It wasn't a full apology, but it was something. More than I'd expected. The new year arrived. I still lived in my 500-square-foot space, now decorated for the holidays with a small tree and lights strung along the window. Bright Fuse announced promotions, and I was named creative director for social strategy, the role I'd been working toward for years. I started mentoring younger staff, began dating again, slowly, casually, intentionally. Joined a community book club that met at a local coffee shop every other Thursday. Took a solo weekend trip to the coast, my first vacation in 3 years. I kept the espresso machine but upgraded to a better grinder, a gift to myself for the promotion. My morning coffee ritual became sacred. A daily reminder that I controlled my own space. One evening, feeling reflective, I wrote a blog post anonymously. Family, boundaries, and the power of walking out. It went semi-viral on Medium, with comments from others who'd experienced similar dynamics. I found myself part of a community I never knew existed. People reclaiming their power, one boundary at a time. 3 months after Thanksgiving, Brianna texted me a screenshot. An offer letter from a full-time job at an art supply company. "I'm paying full rent now," she wrote. "Found a roommate through work. Moving out next month." I sent her a gift, a small framed print that said, "You don't need a safety net when you grow wings." She sent back a photo, the print hanging on her new kitchen wall. By Easter dinner, something had fundamentally shifted. Dad had stepped back from his lecturing mode. Mom listened more than she talked. Brianna brought her new roommate, a calm, grounded woman who worked in publishing. I didn't feel joy exactly, but peace. We were still a flawed family, but no one owned me anymore. Sitting in my apartment later that night, candles lit, music playing softly, journal open on my lap, I reflected not on escape, but reclamation. I hadn't destroyed my family. I'd simply left them to their own habits and outgrown the cycle that had defined us for decades. My revenge wasn't fire. It was absence. It was silence. It was making them live without me while I finally learned to live with myself. The following weekend, I hung a new piece of art on my wall, a photo I'd taken of my old apartment, empty and hollow after I'd moved out. Underneath it, I placed a handwritten caption: "Freedom isn't leaving, it's choosing where you'll no longer stay." That evening, I sat by the window, coffee in hand, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. No one was coming. No one was staying. And I was exactly where I was meant to be. Some people spend their whole lives fighting for a place at the table. I'd finally built my own. The furniture might be secondhand, the space might be small, but every inch of it belonged to me. Not because someone let me have it. Not because I paid below market value, but because I claimed it, fair and square. Independence isn't what I thought it was. It's not about paying your own bills or having your own place. It's about knowing your worth isn't measured by what others are willing to give you. It's about recognizing when silence isn't peace. It's just the absence of your own voice. And most importantly, it's about understanding that sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't staying and fighting. Sometimes it's packing up everything you own and walking away.